Buzz.
Hello and welcome to MMA Buzz Radio, Episode 2. I'm Rodney, man. Joining me today is
Nick Brown
and Trevor Lutz.
We have so much to talk about. What a weekend. International Fight Week is in the books, and we saw some mind-boggling fights, a couple of snoozers, but some real changing of the guard, you could say, going on here through the last 3 cards in the last 3 days. So yeah, if you're new to MMA Buzz, what you can expect is we're 3 friends getting together for some beers, and we're going to talk about MMA, upcoming cards that just happened, and industry news. We're coming to you pre-recorded from our Fredericton, New Brunswick studio apartment, and we have a lot to talk about today. But sticking with tradition, we're going to tell you guys what we're drinking. Personally, I am drinking a 10-point India Pale Ale, and that is coming to you in small batches from Baysfield, Ontario, from Lake of Bays Brewing Company.
I'm drinking a Hopbot IPA from Hop City Brewing in St. John, New Brunswick.
Alright, and I'm having a SPCA IPA Pump House out of Moncton, New Brunswick. It's in support of the animal adoption clinic that's in New Brunswick.
Yeah, shout out to Pump House paying it forward for that. SPCA. Alright, boys, let's kick off episode 2. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Woo! Hair of the dog, boys. We're actually, just so everybody has an idea where we're coming from today, we are recording this for you guys at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the day after UFC 194, the day after the counterpunch heard around the world. We are going to go in reverse chronological order with the events, and we are going to start with UFC 194. Record draw out of the MGM. Lots of amazing fights that led up to the Conor fight, Conor and Aldo, and I'll be the first to say I saw Aldo taking that in spectacular fashion, but I don't think anybody saw a 13-second knockout coming, from either guy.
The best bettors in the world couldn't have picked that.
No. So, first impressions, guys. Nick, what do you think?
Well, I really wanted to see more of a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, a quick knockout's impressive, but... And I think everyone that was here last night, too, thought there was going to be more of a fight. Everybody was predicting somewhere between a 2nd and 4th round finish, not for any specific person.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I don't think that... I mean, we'll get into talking about what this means for either guy later, but I don't think anybody expected such a fight where it is just... There's no obvious reason for an immediate rematch, Trevor, what do you think? What first impressions of the main event?
Oh, God. Yeah, it's... mind-blowing and in awe because I didn't know what to say at first. It was, it happens in MMA. It's
speechless. I think everybody was speechless, and really, you look back at the footage and Joe Rogan just losing his mind, Goldberg not sticking to the script for once, just going crazy. Everyone in that arena was electric. I hear stories of beer flying, completely with disregard, reckless abandon, throwing their cups in the air in celebration. The Irish faithful were in the crowd, but there was a lot of Conor fans just from all over the place.
Yes.
And I think there was a lot of Brazilian fans there too that could. You can't look at that and not be impressed. You can be upset, but hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you could hear it in the crowd earlier too with the chants in Portuguese. So there was a huge following both ways. Most of them should be happy with the outcome, really, because I mean it was fast, but looking back, and you're gonna be watching it for years to come, it's like, wow, that was the build up. Everything was just incredible, and the end in that type of way, it's a good capper to everything.
Yeah. Do you think this is the way the fight would have gone had it happened when it was originally scheduled? Grev?
I haven't actually thought of that. I don't believe so, in a sense, because that I don't know, it just...
You want to think that there would have been more of a fight.
Exactly.
In any scenario.
Maybe even one more round. Or a round.
Or a minute.
Yeah.
No.
Anything.
Maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you see...
Incredible counter. Incredible.
The counter striking was on full display. I mean, there was only really one instance where it happened. I mean, the fight was only 13 seconds. But, you know, Conor's movement, during open workouts, he brought out his movement coach and, you know, dodged around a bar the entire time and made people kind of question in the last build-up to the fight, like, you know, is he taking this seriously? Look at him, he's just, like, pretending to be a cat. But... I think you could say everybody's out looking for a movement coach on Monday morning.
I'm thinking maybe Conor did get to Aldo's head a little bit because Aldo's usually not that aggressive. Like came out swinging. Like he's usually more reserved, almost plodding, waiting in any other fight, even WC. But this, he really went forward and, like you were just saying, really... Yeah, it caught him.
Nick?
Caught him hard.
The movement training thing was big for Conor. Like, a lot of what was coming out of his camp was talking about how he was going to be faster than Jose Aldo. And I think we got to see it a little bit. It would have been interesting to see more, to see if he actually could have lasted being faster than Aldo. Because most guys can't do that. Most guys just can't keep up with Jose.
No, it's true. It's actually kind of funny to see the damage dealt to Jose Aldo, and post fight, you see he's got a broken nose just from that one shot. And there's a freeze frame I saw going around Instagram where you can tell that Conor broke his nose on that first punch. So on the counter strike, he broke his nose, knocked him unconscious, followed up with hammer fist, and split his nose open.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
It was a pretty dominant display. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure Jose gets a rematch after that. You know, I feel like this is a Renan Barão kind of situation where it was just such a clear-cut victory that. And with all the hype behind Conor and, you know, the layoff with Jose, I feel like he needs to, even though he's still in the talks for the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
Yes,
I think,
10 years, you can't deny that.
He needs to go take another fight and, you know, hopefully come back. And I think we talked about it yesterday, or not yesterday, but last time on the podcast where we said if anybody deserves an immediate rematch, no matter what the outcome, it's Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
I believe he does. Like, you can't deny 10 years of being undefeated. It would be interesting to see how a rematch would go. If it went the same way, though, then just like kind of Renan Barão and TJ, then that's when it really shows, you know, this guy definitely is better. He showed it twice. But for now, Conor is definitely the better fighter.
I think if Aldo wants the rematch, he probably gets the rematch. But there's also a possibility that Aldo retires after this.
Yeah,
he did say he didn't.
He did say he wasn't going to. It was a rumor, and then he dispelled it at the press conference, the pre-fight press conference. So I don't think he'll retire. I think he's got a couple more fights in him, and he's got that movie coming out. I don't know if anybody's saw the trailer for that movie, but there's a Jose Aldo feature-length film coming out, not a documentary, but a drama based on his life. So
Scarface.
It would make sense, you know, what a perfect way to bring that full circle and, you know, have a comeback fight. Yeah, we're talking Scarface, and Nick's wearing a no snitches Scarface shirt right now. So.
I just looked over, I was like, wait.
Yeah. So I mean, this kind of draws a comparison to the Holly Holm Ronda Rousey fight, because obviously Rousey had such a long history behind her, and she's going to get the immediate rematch apparently with Holm if she can, you know, if they can get their stuff together for 200. So, you know, I wonder how you guys feel about the slant from the UFC commentator, specifically Joe Rogan, after the fight, where, you know, he's talking about it being in such a decisive fashion, like taking the McGregor hype train and just continuing its acceleration into the stratosphere. You know, they were real quick to mention to talk about how Rousey deserved a title shot, but in this one they didn't mention it at all. So I'm just looking to get your guys' take on that.
I believe a reason is because what happened at the TUF finale, because Edgar had shown that he's he's the next contender, and he is actually in attendance cage side for this too.
That's a good point. And and we'll get to the tough finale going ahead. So maybe now is a good time to continue talking about, the rest of the 194 card, where Luke Rockhold put the beating on Chris Wiedman. It wasn't even really close in my opinion. Improves to 15-2. Just a brutal display of of dominance, of ground and pound. Nick, you said you counted the shots. How many unanswered shots did you say?
89 unanswered shots at the end of round 3. Not all of them landed, but either way, he threw 89 shots.
Yeah, and it did look like Herb Dean, who obviously isn't looking at the clock, he's looking at the fighters and making sure everything's good with them. He goes in to break up the two, and he waves it off.
Looked like a finish. Yeah.
It looked like he was calling the finish, but I think the buzzer beat him to it, and rather than going with the best interest of the fighter, he let it continue, and I feel like that fight could have ended maybe 30 seconds prior to the end of the round.
Yes, the elbows that Rockhold was landing were absolutely vicious. Through his guard, straight elbows, not downward pointing, but straight through his guard.
Yeah,
that's what opened him up to be able to hit him with rights and
forward
lefts.
And up, not 12-6.
Yeah, forward and up, absolutely cutting him up. It actually reminded me of Wiedman Munoz, so maybe that was just like karma. Absolutely brutal finish to the third, but he got the finish in the fourth, but it could have easily been stopped at the end of the third.
Yeah, so Weidman's undefeated streak ends at 13-1 with some real notable victories, obviously, over the who's who, like a murderer's row, the last 5 and 6 fights of his career. So, obviously, I think they're going to give him the rematch. It was a very intense beatdown, but the fight before this one on 194 between Jacare and Yoel Romero didn't really... I don't think we got the spectacular finish we were all expecting. In my opinion, it was a real hard-fought match. So, do you think Wiedman gets the rematch, or do we see Yoel Romero or Jacare contend for the title against Luke Rockhold? Nick, what do you think?
I think Wiedman probably gets the rematch. I would like to see Romero get a title fight at some point, but that win wasn't impressive enough. I think he needs another fight before he gets a title shot.
What do you think?
I believe Yoel's actually going to get the title shot. I mean, it wasn't the greatest fight, but I believe it was a reason that was before the title fight, was to have a clear-cut winner and title challenger.
But do we have a clear-cut winner or title challenger after the fight went the distance and went for the...
Jacare should have done something, and I feel like he just didn't do much at all. He was on his...
He was looking to grapple, I think, and Yoel Romero is a silver medalist wrestler, so was it a good idea to bring that match to the ground in the first? Nick, what do you think?
Oh, they can both fight on the ground, and really, I guess he proved that he was the better fighter, so he did do his job. I don't know whether it's the smartest idea to get on the ground with Damian Maia.
Oh no, we're talking about Yoel Romero and Jacare.
Jacare.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it looked like Jacare wanted to take a breather because he got kind of rocked, and then, Jesus, man, he really took a beating from then on for the rest of that round. Like, he got up and was, like, super wobbly going back to his corner. I mean, I've seen fights stop because people look that wobbly, and really the corner maybe should have thrown in the towel if you're looking at your fighter, like, struggling to stand up. Trevor, you look like you want to chime in on this. What's up?
Well, they didn't mention at the end of the first, Yoel had his back. He hit him with a right uppercut underneath the guard. That was the one that stunned him. He walked away. The announcers didn't mention a single thing about it. It could have easily been stopped in between rounds.
Reminiscent of the knockout on Alexander Gustafsson in Sweden when he got punched through his guard up and his head slung back from Rumble Johnson.
There was something I really wanted to mention about Rockhold, the Rockhold-Wiedman fight.
Yeah.
It's the stats before the fight. There has been some MMA promotions that have shown leg length instead of just arm reach, because I feel with the kicking game Luke was showing, I feel like his length of legs were actually distinguishing the range. He got his range and he was kicking hard. He knew I believe he had actual longer reach when it came to his legs, and that was a big difference in the fight.
Yeah, so I mean,
led to him being tired.
So let's say they do go with Yoel Romero versus Rockhold. Is that a fight you guys see being contested on the feet? Do you think Yoel brings his wrestling game in, and do you think he can stack up against Luke Rockhold after he just put the beating on another fellow wrestler, Chris Wiedman?
I believe Luke Rockhold will want to get Yoel tired. He's going to hit him with kicks, the body, legs, and I believe he will be able to take down Yoel.
Nick?
I think Romero probably wants to wrestle in that instance, but he would also have to get Rockhold to the ground and get on top of Rockhold, and that might not be easy for him.
Yeah, I see this fight being queued up for UFC 200. I feel like this is going to be perfect timing for those guys to get in the cage. Hopefully, injuries be damned. So, I mean, looking down the rest of the card, we had Maia versus Gunny Nelson. Just a grappler's wet dream here. It was we were making our notes before the podcast, and I just wrote that down and said it out loud, and Nick said that's exactly what I just wrote. So I think we were all in agreement. This fight was a clinic by Maia, and it was just, Gunnar Nelson looks great on the ground against anybody he fights, and Maia, he didn't even have a chance against Maia. That body triangle was just like just unrelenting and
beautiful.
Yeah, and so now I just look at that division, and I think, Maia, who's already contested for the championship, he called out the champion. He wants to fight for the championship. I feel like he's going to be overlooked for the rest of all. Like it's just so much talent at the top of that division that Maia doesn't really, with his grappling style, might not really scream, the matchup. And where he's, getting older. What do we do with Maia next?
Maia, I believe he will fight another top contender and then fight for the title if he wins. Robbie Lawler, whoever's the winner of Robbie Condit, but Robbie has shown weaknesses in his grappling in the past with his loss to Jake Shields. And Maia is just phenomenal on the ground. Beautiful, yeah.
I think you're right about Maia maybe not being a draw because of his grappling, but I personally enjoy that, although it seems like a lot of probably mostly casual fans of MMA don't like to watch a fight on the ground. They want to see guys just stand and bang.
Yeah.
So, a guy that's going to stand up and fight probably has a better shot at getting a title shot.
Yeah, so... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. One thing that, going into that fight, that stood out to me was their common opponent was Rick Story. Rick Story absolutely got demolished by Maia with the bleeding nose and the rear naked choke. It was brutal. While Gunnar actually had lost to Rick Story in Europe in a 5-rounder beatdown. But he showed his toughness, and he showed his toughness again against Maia last night.
Yeah, Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that's the last we see of Gunnar Nelson. I feel like, he's so young still, and he's fighting SBG with Conor and the rest of the gang, and I feel like this is one of those back to the drawing board kind of situations where he and everybody wanted to see this fight. This is like in the jiu-jitsu world, everybody just wanted to see these guys roll. So this is just almost like a showcase fight on either end, and Maia just got the upper hand. This fight could have happened outside of the UFC, and everybody would have just been so excited about it as well. Metamorph. Yeah.
It's great because it showed really how strong Maia is too, because Gunnar actually beat Jeff Monson, of all people, a strong, huge heavyweight in grappling competition, and Maia showed technique and strength, like bar none. It was wild.
Yeah, we're big jiu-jitsu fans, so you might hear us go in a little bit more in depth into grappling matches than usual in other podcasts. But you should have seen us. I mean, we set up a projector here in the apartment. We have a good little crew that comes out for the fights, and we were all just on the edge of our seat watching that match. Like, we've seen some stand and bang affairs where we kind of forget what we're watching and we'll get talking, but when it's grappling, we're just zoned in, and it's always a good fight for us when there's some high-level grappling, which we alluded to in the previous podcast, episode 1, when we were talking about Luke Rockhold versus Tim Bochin. I mean, it just goes to show you our prediction held true that Wiedman's a great wrestler, but he just couldn't keep up with the technicality of the the passes and the
jiu-jitsu,
the jiu-jitsu, the body lock was it was just awesome. But getting to the promotion of grappling versus standing and banging or striking matches. In the main event, we did get to see two strikers top of their game for UFC 194. That's Conor and Aldo, and now we had two very established wrestlers duking it out in the tough finale the night before, and that was a stand and bang affair as well. That I don't know if anybody saw that coming. So let's, if there's anything we want to talk about on 194 before we transition, do you have anything, Grev?
Yes, actually.
All right, let's get that out of the way before we get
Santos, Kevin Lee.
Ah, yes.
Great counter, straight right down the middle when Kevin Lee was throwing a kick. Nobody expected that. And it was so funny when he ran out of the ring. It's like, what's this guy doing? Does he have to go take a shit? Is he late to do some errands? I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't get penalized. I can see why they penalized, but let the young guy have some fun.
Yeah.
He came out to the Pride theme song too. Awesome, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that happen with Jose Aldo, and he didn't get fined. So it all depends if they want to make an example out of him fighting into Nevada, which we have seen before.
Yes.
Magomed Mustafayev.
Mm-hmm.
That was impressive. I can't wait to see that guy again.
Dude, that guy just had the look of death in his eyes, just staring his opponent down, mouth agape, just a little bit open. Just everything he punched, every punch he threw, every kick he threw had everything in it. Guy looked like he wanted to kill the guy in the octagon. And in fact, if you guys are listening to this and you want to see more of him, he has a knockout by power bomb, and we were able to find it. It was a 2014 knockout by power bomb. So what's his name again?
Magomed Mustafayev.
Magomed Mustafayev. So I mean, it's kind of a tongue twister, but just look up the fight card on UFC.com or on SureDog, and you can see him. You can see him on the breakdown of the card. Definitely worth checking out checking out the slam, because he's actually stuck in an armbar and picks him up with one arm in the armbar and then slams him down and knocks him unconscious. So yeah,
and flips him. He flips when he connects.
On the ground. He hit the canvas so hard he flipped over.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a fighter I want to see more of.
2-0 in the UFC too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, that being said, 194 in the books. Definitely, I feel like I've got the complete opposite of buyer's remorse, complete buyer satisfaction. That is one of those cards that makes up for all of the snoozer cards that we've ever had to spend $60 on before.
Yes.
Yeah, good job.
It was beautiful.
No, yeah,
amazing event. Just the energy in the air last night too, with all the friends here. Like, we were all so excited. Once the main card hit, just the electricity in the air, you could tell like this is gonna be a big event. Definitely,
yeah. We were explaining to some more casual fans in the room, like, this is not hyperbole. We are this excited about these fights. These are the who's who of all of these divisions, and some really some up and comers that need to be showcased, and they took advantage of the spotlight. There was only a few that went the distance, a little bit boring fights, but overall 194 huge success in my book.
Very, very.
So yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, so let's segue over to the Friday night action, the tough finale. Like I said, we had some very established wrestlers going at it in the main event with Edgar versus Mendez. Of course, Mendez, known as the Mike Tyson of the division, expected to get the knockout early. Edgar, death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's usually his style. Relentless. Yeah, always pushing forward. But we got a KO in the first round, 2 minutes and 28 seconds by Edgar, and man, it was
so good.
Yeah, it was decisive. I would say it's even the most decisive victory in that division in a long time, up until last night when Conor beat Aldo. So it was like one of those amazing records where you're like, oh man, this is gonna be in the highlight reel.
Small guys can KO.
It's been a crazy week.
Don't have to be a heavyweight.
Yeah, I do not want to be working Sports Center UFC highlight reel trying to fit that into 2 minutes on Monday morning. But yeah, Edgar, like I said last podcast, we're looking at him. He wins this. He's in the number one contender spot. Aldo loses in dramatic fashion. If we would have gotten more of a fight, maybe there would have been an immediate rematch, and there might still be an immediate rematch between Aldo and McGregor. Edgar could be on the fence, like we said, for a while. What do we do in the meantime? Do you think they're going to give Edgar the fight?
I believe so. He's fresh, no injuries.
Yeah.
Didn't last too long. He really didn't get hit other than some leg kicks from Mendes and a couple counters, but he's ready. He's always game. He's one of the most game MMA fighters I've ever seen.
How about this fight, Nick?
Josie.
It only lasted 2 minutes and 28 seconds, but it was a showcase of both men for sure. I'm surprised there was no early shoots for takedowns, or more early shoots, I suppose. I think there was 2. And there was just great negation of the takedown, great takedown defense. But Nick, what do you think about this fight?
Well, I just want to address whether he's going to get the title shot or not. If he doesn't, they don't want to leave him on the bench too long. And does he want to fight somebody if it's not for the title at this point?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
No.
So I mean, it's a really tough decision to figure out who gets that title shot. Is there a rematch? Does Edgar get the title shot? I don't know. I mean, I'd be excited for either of those fights anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to be Sean Shelby going through these and trying to weigh the pros and cons and contracts and everything.
I just got to mention also Edgar, awesome Sick of It All tattoo. Great band, great tattoo.
Yes.
Upset.
And Mendes. Mendes looked good going into the fight, and there was a good negation of attacks on either end, and then he got caught. Did he get caught? Was it a good setup?
Beautiful
what do we
setup.
do? Yeah, I agree. I feel like he didn't get caught per se, but he did get a good clip while he was attempting another attack. So he got caught in the middle of his attack.
Yes.
But Mendes, I think we're looking at another situation where a Uriah Faber, for example, where he's fought the champion and he's fought the new champion. So it doesn't look like he's going to get any real run. I think he's going to be the gatekeeper in that division for a couple of fights anyways.
It'll be interesting to see if he might cut down weight. He holds a lot of muscle mass, and he's never fought at bantamweight from what I know.
That'd be an interesting
Maybe fight TJ?
TJ, yeah, but then he'd be against
point.
Uriah as well.
Yeah, true.
He can always move to another camp. But that finale, man, such a great KO. Really showcasing Edgar's knockout power. Like you say, the small guys can knock people out. It was definitely a good way to finish the night, because other than that, there was quite a few drawn out decisions. It was a pretty lackluster card. You can tell that they made the right choices putting everybody on that card. I just want to talk, I guess, to the Tony Ferguson Edson Barboza fight. Dude. By Bravo choke in round 2, Tony Ferguson takes the win. It looked like a Darce choke to me. I'm not sure what the difference is. I'm going to have to look that up. I feel like I'm a little bit ignorant, but it did look very much like a Darce choke to me. Lots of heavy kicks thrown out by Barboza and Ferguson. Just some crazy intricate submission attempts and some really crazy scrambles. Ferguson's looking for number 5. He's sitting in the top 10 right now. He's looking to just keep moving ahead. He's looking for number 5 or a title shot. And I don't know if you guys caught any of the pre-fight interviews with Ferguson, but that guy, he's got the shades on, he's pulling the McGregor hard, and it's working. And I can't get enough of Tony Ferguson.
What was his nickname again? Ugly Tony?
No, El Kakui.
Somebody said Ugly Tony online. I was like,
no,
that's a horrible nickname.
No, it's El Kakui, the boogeyman. He's the boogeyman, dude. Yeah. But yeah, what do you guys think? Nick, what's your impression of this fight? Ferguson putting Edson in a choke and getting a victory in round 2.
Oh, Ferguson did a great job, and I always love to see him fight. I really want to see him move up the ranks. I don't really know what else to say about this fight. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fighting speaks for itself. If you missed the fight, Friday night was an easy night to not tune in because it was right smacked in the middle of the 2 cards. Didn't have Paige or Sage on it, so who tunes in for Freddie Edgar apparently, but definitely a good fight, worth checking out. We also saw Uriah Faber. I'm going to mix those up the entire time. Do you have something else you want to talk about?
Oh, yes, about Ferguson Barboza.
Go ahead.
Ferguson is my favorite fighter to come out of the Ultimate Fighter. I believe he is the most talented and just entertaining. Who was his only loss to? I can't think of it at the top of my head, but he's only lost one fight in UFC. Awesome. Other than the rolling knee bar that he was spamming, that was a little too much. But other than that, showed his toughness, his grappling, his striking, his anti-wrestling, everything. Really looking forward to see what they do with him.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny to see him go for that rolling knee bar, and us talking about, oh, look at that, that's such an unorthodox attempt at a submission. And then the next fight it was the tough finale, which I don't really feel like talking about.
No.
But it had a few of those in it too. Yeah, I mean, that was a classic grappler versus striker, Lobov. Yeah, just another example of why not to put tough finales on main cards.
Yeah.
What did I say with the tough finale before we started? I don't know who those guys are, and I don't want to know who those guys are.
Well, Lobov had a lot of hype behind him, and the Ryan, I can't remember his last name now, but the winner, Ryan. Who cares? He actually was a late replacement for a guy who lied on his visa, and I was glad we had JC and Chantel here at the Night of Fights to fill us in on all of the drama from the tough season, because I don't think any of us tuned in for a single episode. Conor be damned, Uriah be damned. We didn't.
Sorry.
I actually tried a few times, but I just couldn't get into it. But anyways, they knew more about it, and they thought this Ryan guy's gonna take it. Lobov didn't. They thought that he would be shut down by his grappling, and lo and behold, they were right. So maybe they should have put some money on it, because I think that was probably the biggest underdog in the entire card. But yeah, we didn't want to talk about it. We talked more about it. Just stop putting tough finales in the main card. Make that be the prelim finale. Get Uriah back up on the main card. But yeah, speaking of Uriah, let's talk about that fight. Uriah getting the unanimous decision over Frankie Saenz. Guys, I feel like Uriah lost that fight. He was outclassed. Saenz really brought the beat to him. There was a lot of scrambles, but one of the judges gave it to Uriah 30-27.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about that.
Ridiculous.
If you listen to the first podcast, you know my opinion on Uriah Faber. But that being said, I do have respect for the guy. He's a great fighter. But in this case, he didn't win that fight. I was so surprised by that decision.
I feel like it's karma coming around to give him the win when he shouldn't have lost from that ground and pound from was it
Barao?
Yeah, when he had his hand covered, gave the thumbs up, and still managed to lose. But I mean, poor Frankie Saenz. He asked for this fight. Doesn't look like he's going to go up anywhere, just because of the whole media generated rankings. Maybe if they were a little more subjective, he would have a chance, but. Yeah, no, I think he just sort of disappears into the middle of the pack again, and we don't really hear much from him. Meanwhile, Uriah gets the win, doesn't really get any sort of clout with it. It's not impressive. It's not classic Uriah beatdown. It just is another win on Uriah's belt. Another decision, basically.
Yeah, Uriah is just exactly where he was before.
Yeah.
Well, I feel as the only highlight for Uriah during that fight was the head kick he landed.
Yeah.
Great.
He stunned him in the first.
He stunned him, put him on the ground, great. But he got reversed and then got beat down from Saenz. It's like, how did they score to the second round? I don't believe it was a 10-8 for Uriah. Maybe a 10-9, but it could have gone to Saenz also.
Yeah, I just feel like Saenz got robbed.
Yes.
I'm not going to watch the fight again to to qualify my findings. I just thought that was one of the snoozers from the night, where it was just more love lost for Uriah at this point. I think his best days are behind him, unless he really scores some. Actually, I thought he had, in the first round when he did stumble him there, he had some pretty effective striking, which looked good. But yeah, Frankie just kept stuffing the takedown, and he just never got further.
Lots of good leg kicks.
Either way, he took home the win, so, kudos to him. Figured out a way to game the judges.
Yeah, Uriah is going to be another Clay Guida, just a gatekeeper on the way to the top.
Pretty much. So, yeah, I mean, that's all I really feel like talking about for that fight night. A lot of snoozers. A lot of forgettable fights.
Yes, there were.
Anything else before we head over to UFC Fight Night 80?
Nothing too much about that card. That card was a great main event, great co, but other than that, it was quite the snoozer. But that was nothing wrong with that because there's so many fights to come in the weekends.
Yeah, it's hard to hit a home run on 35 fights.
Yes.
Every single fight. So yeah, let's transition over to UFC Fight Night 80. Rose Namajunas versus Paige Van Zant. Guys, we saw Rose just one step ahead of Paige the entire time. She ended up taking it with a rear naked choke, 225 in the round 5. 225 in the round 5. She's looking like the Rose Namajunas that everybody thought we would see coming out of her debut with the Tough when they were doing the original Tough for that fight for that division. And I watched this fight listening to the announcing, thinking, what the hell is going on right now? Because they would not stop talking about Paige, and maybe they mentioned once or twice about how fast Rose was, or this is the Rose that we all thought we would see. Nick, I know you commented on it when we first talked about this card. What do you think about the announcing, and what do you think about the fight in general?
The entire fight they just talked about Paige. Oh, look how good she is at taking a beating. She hasn't lost yet. This is great that she hasn't lost.
Yeah.
And Rose Namajunas needed this win, and she won in impressive fashion. The entire fight, she was ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Grev?
On the first podcast, I felt bad because I said that, I didn't really watch anything by Rose before. I will now. She did a fantastic job, and other than the biased commentary, I couldn't really get past. Just listening to it, I had a hard time. But Rose was tooling Paige in every aspect of the game. On the ground, on the feet, in the exchanges, on the grappling, everything against the cage. And then finished it with a rear naked choke, which she almost had in the fourth also, with blood just pooling in Paige's eyes. It was pretty gnarly to see.
Paige got her ass kicked.
Got her ass kicked, yes. And they didn't even really mention it.
No, man. If it was she was on the other foot and Paige was schooling Rose, they would have just talked about her striking, how epic it was, how far she's come and all of this kind of thing. I feel like they really wanted Paige to pull the upset like she usually does, where she's getting her ass kicked for pretty much 3 rounds, and then she'll pull it out of her ass in like the last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. But it to me it just sounded like they were looking for the sound bite, so they could be like, oh, Paige is getting roughed up. Oh, what a left hook! Paige lands it, and it's a victory for Paige.
She's still getting her ass kicked.
The entire time. And I mean, I thought it was a great. I liked seeing these guys headline because they had the cardio to go 5 rounds, and they brought the fight. Paige tried her best. I think, sometimes
she is tough, that's for sure. Like, she can take it, which they mentioned, but
yeah. So I mean, sticking to the Paige and Stage show. Sage Northcutt also fought on that card. The only other real fight of note being Miller versus Chiesa, but we're going to skip that just for time here. But Sage Northcutt versus Cody Pfister. We see Sage get the win, guillotine round 2. Nick, was this an impressive win for Sage?
I don't think so, and I mean we got to talk about the stand-up in round 1, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Pfister was working. He was working so hard, and the ref just jumped in and stood them up, and it turned the whole fight around. I don't think me and Trevor were watching it. I don't think either of us said another word until the fight was over.
My jaw hit the floor. Literally, I was like, I couldn't believe what I saw.
Well, when I actually watched it after the fact, and so I rewinded on the PVR, like the playback, and it like on Fight Pass, and I counted 1.5 seconds of inactivity before they stood them up. Like there was 10 seconds of trying to advance, and then he put his head down to rest, and they stood him right up. It was unreal, man. I feel like the ref was like, I'm not calling any type of corruption here, but the ref, when you see that happen in a fight and you know who's expected to win and who they want to win, it just stinks.
Yeah.
The announcing,
you want to puke.
The announcing was the same in that fight too. It was all Sage.
Yeah. Well, sound bites. The UFC knows who they want to succeed.
Yeah.
But I think they hit a home run with Sage anyways. I think this is just one of those unforgettable fights that pads his record, and we never really hear about Cody Pfister in the division again.
Yeah.
And Paige, she'll take this loss, but they'll just keep on harping about how good she is when she comes back. A real rough night for Team Alpha Male all around, or a rough weekend. No one
impressed.
No one winning from Team Alpha Male from the entire weekend.
Well, Uriah actually, but it was the.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. That's how much I feel like Uriah lost that fight.
Yeah,
because he got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess he wins, and if anybody were to win,
you can't feel good about that win, though.
Yeah,
can't really feel good about that win.
As we mentioned,
it's distasteful,
As we mentioned briefly last week, does that
tasteless
have anything to do with the coaches being so busy?
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw Faraz Sahabi in there 3 or 4 times. Saw the guys from Team Alpha Male in there, like you say, 3 or 4 times. So it's a good point to make. Something I never ever thought about before. And in case you missed the podcast previewing all of these fights, Nick actually mentioned that it's one thing for the fighters to go into this weekend with all of the pressure on their shoulders, but the coaching staff, some of these gyms have several fighters in these events spread out over several nights, and they've got to keep their focus for their fighters and really bring their game plan specific for their fights to the ring to remind their fighters, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Although during the Van Zandt fight, I just heard, try and win. Get up, Paige.
Yeah.
Which was really strange.
Do something.
Yeah.
After she lost 3 rounds, her corner told her that she just needs to go out and win this next one.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going. Just go win this next round. And she was clearly losing the fight. It just didn't seem like her corner had much steam. So
could you be any more vague?
Oh, do this certain technique might get you ahead a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's easy for us. I think they call us armchair quarterbacks. We can look back at this and see what went wrong. But when you're in the moment, it's kind of tough to. I imagine it's pretty tough to put it all together. But that's why you have those professionals in there. They should have been giving her better coaching. Overall, International Fight Week, 3 events. We had UFC Fight Night 80 Thursday. We had the TUF finale on Friday. And then we had it all capped off with the UFC 194. 3 long days, all capped off in 13 seconds. Let's just have a moment for International Fight Week this year. The scheduling, the matchmaking, everything coming together. I think a huge home run for UFC. Will you be tuning in next year, Nick?
Of course I will. I'll be tuning in next week.
Good point. Now we're the hardcores. We're not going anywhere. But do you think this, grows the fan base? Is this something that transcends the hardcores? I think we're going to see some real big numbers out of the pay-per-views for 194. I'm excited to see how that transfers over to TUF finale and the Fight Pass event, UFC Fight Night on Fight Pass, to see if we got numbers the same or at least similar or at least better than previous fight nights and previous TUF finales because of their slot here in December during International Fight Week.
Yes, yeah. A lot of casuals will be watching this past weekend from everything building up with Conor and Aldo. Mm-hmm. Like Conor has a whole country behind him, basically. A lot of Europe, UK in general. And with all the embeddeds, the hype on everything, I guess even on the front of BBC News, on the internet, Conor was there talking about it. That's boxing highlights style. That's what happens when, say, a boxer wins. Boxing's been around forever, right? Mm-hmm. Now there's an MMA highlight and news article on the front of BBC News. That's huge.
And there's so much UFC on cable now that it's easy for the casual fan to watch and to get more into it. And it probably will get more casual fans becoming a little more serious about it and buying pay-per-views because they are putting big fights out there for everyone to see.
Yeah, I do like the approach over the last year, the scheduling year, 2015 as a whole. I think there was a lot of fights to balance. There was a lot of opportunities for injuries to throw things out of whack. Like nothing, knock on wood, nothing happened next week, and nothing happened this week. I mean, a few people dropped out, tough finale and all that kind of stuff, but I think that this whole not taking any chances, just going straight for the kill for all of these events, especially to cap it off like in such spectacular fashion. The UFC is looking good going into 2016 after a tumultuous 2013 and 2014 with injuries and canceled cards and everything.
So many.
So yeah, I guess speaking to the success of the UFC and then looking forward to the success of the UFC, we're just going to touch briefly looking ahead to UFC on Fox, which is next weekend. Where we've got Trevor's favorite, Rafael Dos Anjos.
Hand over him.
Yeah, hand over him. So we got Dos Anjos versus Cowboy. Dos Anjos coming into this fight 24-7 versus Cowboy 28-6. We got a classic, wrestler boxer versus Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. It's going to be really, I feel, a Rockhold Wiedman kind of style, where we have a real wrestling dependent fighter going against a heavy-handed, jiu-jitsu specialist. This is a rematch. Trevor, I'd like you to speak to that since you were around since you were watching these fights when Dos Anjos was a relative nobody.
The first fight was great. He actually came in as the underdog, dropped Cerrone with a hard right, overhand right in the first, and Cerrone could not recover from that until the third, when he kind of came back, and Dos Anjos was gassing. This is what makes the rematch really interesting, because if that fight would have been a 4th and 5th, Cerrone might have taken it. So now we get to see the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round coming up, and it's going to be an awesome fight. Both guys are so skilled in the top of the game, and actually, picturing it, they are legit like top of the lightweight division, which is stacked. But these guys are great fighters.
The cream of the crop of the
division,
crop, for sure. Nick, what do you think? Are you excited for this fight?
I am excited for this fight. No clear-cut winner there. Cerrone's coming in on an 8-fight win streak with a TKO over McDessie. But either of these guys could easily take this fight.
I think Dos Anjos is just that much better at every aspect, just a little bit, and that just makes him win the fight. They're so equal, but I find that he's just a tad bit better, especially looking at their mutual opponent, which is Pettis, who Dos Anjos just destroyed in a 5-rounder, absolutely destroyed him. Pettis actually had finished Cerrone first round, liver shots, TKO. So that's a mutual opponent there.
I feel like those were two different fights, because Pettis was injured before the Dos Anjos fight, had time off, had to deal with the Wheaties thing. He was just, I think all the celebrity went to his head. It was a whole different situation.
Haircut every week.
Yeah, it was just, I think he was more focused when he was trying to build his name, and then once he had his name, he kind of fell off the watchtower. But no disrespect to Dos Anjos, I think he's really going to bring the hurt to Cowboy. I also see Dos Anjos taking the win. I think Cowboy's, riding a crazy highlight reel that any other fighter would be envious of. I think everybody looks up to him in the division. I think it's funny how much hate he gets from Conor, but I think because Conor realizes Cowboy is a wicked draw, if those two were to ever, lock horns, which it does sort of sound like that is the game plan for Conor. He's going to vacate the title eventually, and maybe we'll see a match maybe we'll see a title versus title kind of fight.
Will Conor be too small for lightweight though? Cerrone, even Dos Anjos,
he's a big guy,
huge guys. Cerrone especially, he's over 6 feet and fighting in 155. He's got the Diaz style, big for that division.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. Like I say, I see Dos Anjos taking this, but if Cerrone knocks him out in incredible fashion, I will not be surprised or disappointed.
Nope. Either way, both guys winning will be fantastic. I want Dos Anjos to win because he's a favorite of mine, but can't doubt that Cerrone could win this.
So, also on that card, we've got Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem. Another one of Trevor's favorites here. His face just lit up as soon as I said Overeem. He's been watching him for a long time. We got Dos Santos, JDS, 17-3. Alistair Overeem, 39-14, bringing a lot of wars into this fight. Both these men. Dos Santos, not to be confused with Dos Anjos, taking some severe beatings on his way to some victories, on his way to some losses. Alistair being folded by some elbows not long ago. He's coming off a 2-fight win streak. Alistair, that is. JDS, I believe, coming off a loss, or 1 win, but a loss before that. Both with wins over Stefan Struve in their last little bit. Stefan Struve's, struggling to find his footing in the division after that layoff with his sickness. So, one could argue that is just a tune-up fight for either of these men to keep them busy while the heavyweights figured it out. I don't really know who to go with in this fight. This is just one of those fights I'm excited to see. They've been barbing back and forth on Twitter and on MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani talking about this fight. I think Alistair Overeem wanted it more than JDS, but regardless of who wanted it most, they're getting it now. What do you think looking into this fight, Trev?
I think Overeem's got to bring his experience. Not only is a fantastic striker, he showed in the mirror fight, which was the most significant strikes landed in a heavyweight bout of all time, that he can grapple. He's a European Jiu-Jitsu world champion. He can, I believe he's going to change it up. He's going to take JDS down. The thing with Overeem is his chin has been suspect over the years, which doesn't surprise anybody really because, for one, he's been fighting for so many years, which he used to do at light heavyweight. We got KO'd a few times. But the power at heavyweight, anybody can get KO'd. I believe he's going to, if he gets clipped, wouldn't surprise me, but I believe Overeem's going to take him down, grind him, because JDS has shown in his losses to Cain Velasquez and a little bit of the Stipe fight that he has some holes in his game on the ground. So I'm going to go with Overeem, possibly TKO in the first of the third.
I've got Overeem in this one too, and what I'm really hoping either way is that somebody finishes this fight. These guys are both finishers, and they're both coming off of decision wins.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see a heavyweight go the distance in 2015. It's that Jared
high
Rush
altitude.
Yeah, that Jared
altitude.
Rush stuff.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah, seeing him in the main card on the preview for the January card or February card, I just thought, why?
Yeah,
why?
we groaned. It was a downer all of a sudden.
So, we've got some more awesome fights on this card. Looking down it, we don't want to get too far into it. We're kind of running out of time, but let's talk quickly about Nate Diaz versus Michael Johnson. We've got Nate Diaz, 17-10. Michael Johnson, 16-9. Nate hasn't fought since his loss to Dos Anjos, the current champion, last December 13th. Michael Johnson coming off a loss to Benyal Darush, but before that he had won 5 in a row against Edson Barbosa, Melvin Guillard, who's in World Series of Fighting now, Gleison Tebow, and Joe Lozon. So a really impressive cast of characters Michael Johnson has just plowed through on his way up the division. I think he's making a good case for himself to get into top 5 if he can beat Nate Diaz, even though Nate Diaz is sort of skirting the outskirts of the top 15 now. Mm-hmm. A name like Nate Diaz on his belt could really bring some. You've already got Edson Barboza, Gleison Tebow, and Joe Lozon. What else do you have to do? But if he beats Nate, I think he's going to put himself into a great footing for a number 1 contender fight.
Yeah.
This is one of the fights I'm the most excited about on this card. Anything about this fight that excites either of you guys?
Well, I believe that Michael won his last fight too. It put him in a hard spot. He even said that he got in a hard spot, basically.
No, he lost to Benyal Darush.
Yes, it was a bad decision. Really bad decision.
Oh, yes, that's true.
He got put in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to come out there and try to prove something. But against somebody like Nate Diaz, that's hard to do. He's good at all the aspects of MMA. And he trains with a lot of great fighters. And he wants to probably prove something. Seeing as he hasn't fought in a long time, and with everything that's going on with Nick, might want to prove, that there's really another good Diaz still in the game.
Nate Diaz is tough, but I really want to see Michael Johnson win this one.
Free Nate Diaz.
I want to see Michael Johnson win this one just because I'd like to see him, catapult higher up the ranks.
Yeah.
I think he's a great matchup for a lot of the guys at the top of that division.
Nice. Yeah, we also have Charles Oliveira versus Miles Jury, Nate Marquardt and CB Dollaway, Nick Lentz, Danny Castillo, Josh Saman fighting again. I mean, after his spinning head kick knockout, I'm excited to watch him fight.
He's fighting
anytime.
the Barn Cat though. Tanner McCrory's back
Tanner
from
McCrory.
Bellator. He's awesome. Really good taste in music too.
Yeah, we got Cole Miller. I mean, he kind of looked a little lackluster last time. Got Sarah Kaufman on the card. A couple others like Leon Edwards. It's going to be an interesting card.
And the guy with a really long name.
Luis Enrique Barbosa de Oliveira. Man, that's a mouthful. Before we go on, I want to look back on 194 in summation, 194, or I guess International Fight Week in total, and let's hit up our segment. Half cut, uppercut. Who was the most impressive dark horse of the weekend? Grev?
I've got to go with with Leonardo Santos. That was a huge upset. Kevin Lee, he's been talking about beating Sage and going up in the division, getting title shot, and he just got obliterated in the first.
Yeah, good point. Nick, your half cut uppercut choice of the fight night International Fight Week.
He didn't win, but Freddie Silence, sorry. He impressed me. I didn't think he was going to do that well against Faber.
Yeah.
And I thought he deserved the decision, but that was impressive to me.
Yeah, my half cut uppercut goes to Rose Namajunas, even though I feel like she should have been the favorite going into it. I feel like the hype train for Paige comes off, and that is more. I think that's the most lasting effect out of every fight that happened this weekend, as far as the ripple effect through the division is concerned. I don't 100%. Think the loss to Conor by Aldo really shakes up the division that much. But as far as Paige's her path to the top, yeah, I mean she's kind of hit a stutter step there, and I think Rose cements herself as a top 3, and I feel like she should get a number 1 contender fight before she takes the championship match. But if she gets thrown into the championship match and she performs the way she does, I feel like she could be a dark horse that comes out of the gate again and takes it.
Rose was on short notice too, wasn't she?
Pretty sure she fought Johanna too.
Yes, she wasn't on. She was on short notice by a week. I think she was supposed to fight. Calderwood, Joanne Calderwood, and she got hurt, so she couldn't. Before we wrap it up, though, guys, we're gonna go to our next segment. The full bladder splatter. Who pissed the bed the hardest this International Fight Weekend? Grev, let's go around the same way.
Oh man, I want to say Aldo. I feel bad for Aldo, but that's 13 seconds title fight. I have to go with Aldo. Sorry, Aldo, but yes, that's a piss in the bed.
What do you got?
I was thinking the exact same thing. I mean, you got to say Aldo.
Yeah.
I tried to say Wiedman, but I'm like, has to be Aldo, has to be, or Paige also. Like it's.
Well, I'm gonna dig into a little deeper than the main event for my full bladder splatter. I'm gonna go with Elias Theodorou. Because I have never seen anybody come out the gate with such an impressive striking game and then revert to the old faithful going to the well for takedowns the entire remainder of the fight, ever. He came out with some crazy switch kicks and he was looking great.
Yeah, against Thiago.
Yeah, and then he fell off the radar.
Thiago realized that and, busted him up badly.
Yeah.
They even mentioned that, it's like a cup holder on his head.
Oh, it was huge. I feel like that could have been...
They didn't stop it either.
That was a massive cut. It was like almost 2.5 inches wide above his brow. That could have been... and usually they don't stop because fights are underneath the eye, so it doesn't drip into the eye to obscure the vision, but this one kept going. I thought it was a pretty questionable call.
And his eyebrow was hanging, kind of.
Yeah.
It was supported.
Yeah, I mean, props to him fighting out of going over and training with Wiedman. I feel like that adds to the full bladder splatter because he went and took the proper training techniques. He went and fought with the best. and both those guys took losses.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't want to say Wiedman pissed the bed because he just got outclassed, but as
First
far as
loss,
seeing
too.
somebody outclassing somebody else and then pissing the bed literally mid-match, I mean, we can talk about pissing the bed. Maybe we should introduce another segment, Who Shit the Bed, because we saw fighters shit themselves during UFC 194. Let us not forget.
Yeah.
There was a nice little brown circle just perfectly on the butt of one of the fighters. I can't remember quite who it was.
It was during the... who was it? Let's see
we gotta
here.
find out now.
I actually was going on SureDog and I forgot my password and my username actually from years ago. I was like, I want to write and see if anybody else is talking about this.
Yeah, it was
Ended up some people did see it.
Yeah, it was
He
pretty...
pooped himself. Like
Yancy
Tim
Medeiros.
Sylvia,
Yeah,
Tim
it was
Sylvia
Yancy
style.
Medeiros versus John McDessie. So
Give him black pants next time.
yeah, these Reebok white pants. I mean, who sees somebody shitting themselves mid-fight? I didn't. I've only seen it at the end of a fight after somebody's being choked out or been viciously kicked, and they really have no. They have no
bowels.
recourse. Yeah, but this guy, if you rewatch the fight, Yancy Medeiros, John McDessie, it's a split decision. It's not a good fight. But it's worth it for the entertainment value of trying to spot the brown eye, because after the first he actually shits himself in the first round and then goes the rest of the fight, and you can see him he's really throwing kicks in the first round, and then he gets wobbled, and I feel like when he got wobbled is when he shit himself, and then he never throws another kick after that. It's all low kicks after that. I mean, that's got to be an awkward post-fight walk back to the locker room.
It was an interesting way to kind of start the night. Because once there was anybody with white shorts, it's like, is it going to happen again?
He threw a shout out to his daughter after the fight too, and all I could think when he said it was, if his daughter gets to watch this, she just watched her dad shit himself.
Yeah, in a rather lackluster
poop?
fight. Sorry, John McDessie. Just another one. John McDessie was talking about retiring, perhaps after his last loss when he got completely devastated with that broken jaw and everything. So, after losing to a guy who shit himself, I'm not sure his career has any upwards trajectory. Sorry, John. Fighting out of the East Coast, we love to support our fighters here, but I think he's got to go back to the drawing board the next time he fights somebody. He's got to bring something new to the game. Just unfortunate loss to somebody who shit themselves. Anywho, I think that brings us to an end of the second episode of MMA Buzz. Boys, it was a really successful weekend. Can't wait for next weekend. You can tune in. We're going to record our third podcast next Sunday for UFC on Fox 17. It's Dos Anjos versus Cowboy, Overeem versus Dos Santos. So get ready. Hope you guys like this. Once again, don't forget to share it. Let us know what you don't like. We're MMA Buzz Radio on YouTube and Facebook. We're going to try to get on Twitter and everything here before the next one. And thanks for tuning in. Boys, cheers. Another episode in the books.
Thanks for listening.
Girls.
MMA Buzz. Brought to you by The Beach Radio.